deafened, have low vision, or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Margaret Mack, and for the next hour I'll be reading from the February 14th to February 20th issue of the Buffalo Criterion on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. In the front page article, Mayor Ryan lays out Buffalo's fiscal reality, proposed solutions and testimony before state legislature. Mayor calls for partnership to stabilize city finances, prevent need for cuts in core services. Buffalo. Mayor Sean Ryan today testified before the New York State Legislature at the joint legislative public hearing on the 2026 executive budget proposal, where he laid out the city of Buffalo's fiscal condition and called for a partnership with the state to restore long-term financial stability. The mayor's full written testimony has been submitted to the legislature and is available at the New York State website. His video recorded testimony will be uploaded to the New York State Senate YouTube channel following the conclusion of the hearing. In his testimony, Mayor Ryan described a city operating under the weight of years of unrealistic budgeting practices and one-time revenue solutions that have depleted city reserves and masked a growing structural deficit. He made clear that Buffalo must both increase local revenue and secure short-term state support to stabilize its finances. The city of Buffalo is saddled with the consequences of about a generation of fiscal mismanagement, Mayor Ryan said. For years, the city has relied on one-shot revenues and unrealistic budgets. Now, the bill has finally come due. Mayor Ryan emphasized that Buffalo's fiscal challenges are not the result of excessive spending, but of constrained revenue growth over many years. Buffalo has a lower per capita total tax levy among upstate cities between 2007 and 2024. The city's tax levy largely remained flat or declined. Over the past decade, the city's expenditure growth has remained well below inflation. Buffalo has lowest per capita personnel spending of any upstate city, and more than 70% of city spending goes toward fixed personnel costs and benefits. My administration is prioritizing disciplined and efficient spending, but this is not a problem we can cut our way out of, Mayor Ryan said. Our services have already been cut to the bone. There is not much left to trim. But if we don't begin to close our budget gaps, the only option we would have is to further reduce our police force, fire department, and city workers. That's not something we're interested in doing. The mayor detailed the real-world consequences of underinvestment, including under-resourced public works operations and community centers in serious disrepair. All of these problems are solvable, Mayor Ryan said. We know we can do better, but that starts with honest budgeting of both revenues and expenditures and honest and responsible planning. As part of his testimony, Mayor Ryan requested inclusion of 5 Article 7 proposals in the state budget to provide both short-term stability and long-term revenue solutions. The most immediate request is legislation authorizing a second round of bonding through the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority. This legislation would allow the city to amortize potential revenue shortfalls while long-term revenue measures take effect. This legislation would not create an obligation for Buffalo to borrow, Mayor Ryan said. It would just be an option. It would have to be council approved. The mayor also proposed amendments to legislation governing the Buffalo Parking and Mobility Authority to strengthen governance and oversight while the city evaluates the long-term fiscal implications of parking ramp restructuring enabled in last year's state budget. In addition, Mayor Ryan requested authorization for 3 targeted revenue measures. First, a supplemental tax on vacant and abandoned properties to reduce blight and offset the public costs associated with neglected parcels. Second, a restructuring of eligibility for the homestead property tax rate so that only owner-occupied 1 or 2 family homes qualify, aligning the policy with its original intent of protecting homeowners rather than extending the lower rate to out-of-town investors. Third, authorization for a 2-tiered real estate transfer tax within the city of Buffalo, paid by the seller. We know we can't rely on state support to fix everything that we do, so we'll be seeking property and tax increases over the next 3 years, Mayor Ryan said. But we also don't want to overburden the people of the city of Buffalo, so we would like to have other ways to generate revenues. Because the proposed revenue measures would not generate funds until the 2027-2028 city fiscal year, Mayor Ryan also requested direct temporary state assistance to stabilize Buffalo's budget in the interim. With your help and our commitment to a 3-year soft landing plan, we can help avoid the harmful cuts and put Buffalo on a path to fiscal stability, Mayor Ryan said. And next up is a Senate speech by April Baskin. Every time America enters a moment of fear, people say, "We've never seen anything like this before." But Black Americans have. Long before today's headlines, Black communities lived under mass arrest, family separation, government surveillance, medical betrayal, voter suppression, and state-sanctioned violence. What's happening in the United States today feels shocking, unthinkable for a modern democracy. But what feels shocking to the nation feels familiar to us. That is why Black History Month is not only about remembrance, it is about recognition. Black History Month cannot be confined to celebrations alone. It must also be a warning and a guide, because every horrid headline in America today has a parallel chapter in Black American history. But by going back and reading those chapters, we will learn something essential: how people survive when the government meant to protect them becomes a source of harm. Last month, we saw dozens of protesters arrested in Manhattan for staging a sit-in inside a hotel where federal immigration officers were staying. They were detained, loaded into buses, and charged with exercising their right to dissent. Black history tells us that this tactic is not new. During the Civil Rights Movement, Black Americans participating in sit-ins at lunch counters and public spaces were routinely arrested on bogus charges like loitering or disturbing the peace. These sit-ins were acts of courage in the face of a system determined to maintain segregation's racial hierarchy. What is called law and order today has long been used as a tool of control. On January 24th, the world watched as Alex Preddy, a public servant who took care of American veterans as a nurse, was fatally shot, murdered by federal officers. His death is now under the civil rights investigation. In 1962, Roman Ducksworth Jr., a military police officer going to visit his wife and newborn at the hospital, was ordered off a bus after he was mistaken for a freedom rider and shot dead by the police. Both men served this country. Both were killed by those sworn to uphold the law. Black history reminds us that far too often badges have been used as shields from accountability. Today, public health decisions are being made without scientific justification, restricting vaccines and cutting critical HIV and cancer research funding. Black Americans remember when the federal government deliberately withheld treatment during the Tuskegee syphilis study, allowing more than 100 black men to die so their suffering could be documented. That betrayal taught us a hard lesson. When science bends to politics, public trust erodes and people die. Today, reproductive rights are being rolled back. Roe versus Wade has been overturned. Access to IVF is being threatened. Women in low-income communities are losing access to care due to Medicaid cuts. None of this is new to black women. In the 20th century, thousands were forcibly sterilized without consent in federally funded hospitals. Fannie Lou Hamer was one of those women who, in 1961, was given a hysterectomy without her consent while undergoing surgery to remove a fibroid. This procedure was so common it earned a disturbing nickname, Mississippi appendectomy. Control over women's bodies and reproductive choices have always been political. Black women just experienced it first. "12 days after 5-year-old Liam Ramos and his father were detained by immigration officers outside their Minneapolis home and held at an ICE facility in Texas, they were reunited with their loved ones. Officials from Liam's school say immigration agents used the little boy as bait to get family members inside his home to come to the dorm. During slavery, black families lived every day under the threat of having their children taken away from them. Family separation was a standard and deliberate practice of slave owners, who sold the spouses of enslaved troublemakers as punishment, or gifted enslaved children as wedding gifts to their own adult children. Though we are happy Liam and his father are home where they belong, we remember the black slaves never got to be reunited with their families. Last year, under Elon Musk's Doge, the Veterans Affairs Department cut 30,000 positions, many held by veterans. Transgender military members are being forced out of service. After World War II, black veterans were denied the promises of the GI Bill. They were locked out of home ownership and higher education, while white families built generational wealth. Service did not equal protection then, and it often doesn't now. Recently, we've seen renewed efforts to restrict the right to vote under the language of election integrity. Republicans in Congress are proposing bills that would limit access to mail-in voting, impose national photo ID requirements, and force voters to prove their citizenship to register. Black Americans know this playbook. For generations, literacy tests, poll taxes, grandfather clauses, and felony disenfranchisement were used to exclude black voters while maintaining the appearance of legality. The tactics have changed, but the goals remain the same: to narrow democracy by deciding whose voice counts and whose doesn't. So when Americans ask, how do we survive this moment? Black history answers, we already have. Black Americans endured slavery, lynching, segregation, medical abuse, family separation, voter suppression, and state violence, often all at the same time. We did not survive because the system protected us. We survived because we learned how to endure when it did not. I believe that this year, the centennial year of the formal celebration of Black history in the United States, that Black history can be more than reflections and homage to progress of Black culture in our country. This year, I believe that Black History Month must serve as a template for Americans to remind us that even in the darkest hours of oppression, survival is possible. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo Criterion on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And the next article is The Mighty Obama Sports Report by Pat Freeman, The Mighty Obama. Bad Bunny's Super Bowl halftime show becomes most watched in game history. The media-driven controversy surrounding the historic performance of the #1 streaming artist in the world helped to make it the most watched in Super Bowl history. Super Bowl 60 was the 26th time I have covered the event, which I covered in Santa Clara, California. Each year, I grade those halftime performances as being memorable or not. The Bad Bunny performance had so many timely messages included in the presentation that most of you missed them because oppression has locked you into what you think is true. Most of our mental damage comes from the colonial and imperialist practices that transpired many years ago. This damage is so manifested in us that it affects even those in power positions all over the world. It also creates biases in just everyday people, not realizing that these prejudices about what is right and wrong were forced on you by force. The very education system that we are subjected to has helped fuel the ignorance that is being witnessed amongst us. When will we demand that the education system be fully corrected and tell the truth about what happened in history? The opposition to truth calls this woke, but it has been an aid to a system of white supremacy which permeates the world. This is why the last 2 years of Super Bowl halftime performances, which include Kendrick Lamar, could be deemed historically significant in the power of the artist's messages. I say bravo to Jay-Z, who the NFL appointed to craft these historically significant performances the last 2 years. My grade for the Grammy-winning artist Bad Bunny is not only memorable, but historically significant in sending a message of human dignity that must be adhered to so we can live in peace. And the next article is Post 24 Awards, celebrating Black History Month, honoring 2 leading citizens. This article is written by Julene McGee. On February 10, 2026, in celebration of Black History Month, the Johnetta R. Cole AmVets Post 24, the African American Veterans Arts and Cultural Corporation and community, honored the Merriweather family consisting of Frank III, Frances, Laverne, Frank's wife, and his daughters, Brandy, Khadijah, and Kelly, with a commemorative plaque honoring 100 years of publishing the Buffalo Criterion newspaper at the Frank Merriweather Library branch located at 1324 Jefferson Avenue. The paper has published over thousands of articles and photos starting with the first edition published in 1925 by founder Mr. Frank Merriweather Sr. and his wife Carmelita, which has been published ever since and has been an integral part of this community. From there, the paper has continued publishing under Frank Jr. and Frank III. The plaque was presented to the family by the Mistress of Ceremonies, Miss Deborah M. Ransom, who read the inscription as follows: "This plaque is given for 100 years of strong and continuing publication and being a pillar of the community, dedication, courage, and admiration." The second honoree was C District Police Chief Thelma Jones, who was presented with a plaque for all the work, dedication, and love for the people and community which she serves. Chief Jones' plaque was inscribed with these inspiring words: "With profound respect to Chief Jones for your commitment to safety, your devotion to service, and your example of leadership with dignity and heart. Post 24's Commander Deborah Ransom, Legislator Lawrence Dupre, and Interim Police Commissioner Craig Marcy gave remarks. Finally, everyone in attendance to the program salute the Merriweather family and Chief Jones for the remarkable work, love, admiration from the community. A heartfelt thank you goes out to you." The next article was written by Vicki Santos. UB hosts National Leader for Conversations on AI in K through 12 Education. Buffalo, New York. On Thursday, February 12th, the University of Buffalo School of Education, Center for Early Literacy, CEL, hosted Jeremy Rochelle, PhD, Executive Director, Learning Sciences Research at Digital Promise, for a day-long series of conversations exploring the role of artificial intelligence in K through 12 education. Rochelle is a nationally recognized leader in learning sciences, education research, and technology innovation. His visit, as part of CEL's inaugural quarterly forum, will engage UB leadership, faculty, students, and postdoctoral scholars in discussions about how university can responsibly lead research and innovation in AI-enabled education. This is an important moment because AI is already influencing K through 12 education, often faster than research, policy, and guidance can respond. Professor Wang, Director of CEL, also Senior Associate Dean for Research and Direction of the Fisher-Price Endowed Early Childhood Research Center in the Department of Learning and Instruction at UB. CEL is funded by the Institute of Educational Sciences as a $10 million National Research and Development Center, positioning UB as a hub for shaping how AI is studied, designed, and responsibly implemented in education, particularly for young learners and historically marginalized communities. Wang says that hosting Rochelle reflects UB's growing engagement with national leaders shaping the AI in education landscape. Jeremy brings a rare perspective at the intersection of research, practice, policy, and technology, Wang says. His work offers valuable insights into how national organizations and cross-sector collaborations are collectively shaping the future of AI in education. Rochelle's visit underscores UB's commitment to advancing responsible, research-driven innovation in education and to contributing meaningfully to national conversations about the future of AI in learning. And next article, State News. DiNapoli State Pension Fund valued at $297.8 billion at the end of the third quarter. The estimated value of the New York State Common Retirement Fund was $297.8 billion at the December 31st, 2025, end of the third quarter of state fiscal year 2025-2026. New York State Comptroller Thomas DiNapoli announced today. Fund investments returned an estimated 2.44% for the quarter and 12.5% for the first 9 months of the fiscal year. The state pension fund continues to grow over the third quarter, DiNapoli said. Drops in the stock market, inflation, slower job growth, and broader economic volatility remains risks, however. Fortunately, my team managed the state pension fund prudently with a diversified portfolio that can weather economic storms and provide retirement security for the pension fund's more than 1.2 million working and retired members and their beneficiaries. The fund's audited value was $273.1 billion as of March 31st, 2025, the end of the state's previous fiscal year. As of December 31st, 2025, the fund had 40% of its assets invested in publicly traded equities. The remaining fund assets by allocations are invested in cash, bonds, and mortgages. 23.3% private equities, 13.8% real estate and real assets, 14% and credit absolute return strategies, and opportunistic alternatives 8.9%. The fund's long-term expected rate of return is 5.9%. DiNapoli initiated quarterly performance reporting by the fund in 2009 as part of his ongoing efforts to increase accountability and transparency. A recent independent fiduciary and conflict of interest review recognized the fund for its exemplary investment oversight, risk management, and ethical guidance. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo Criterion on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And this next article is a personal account written by Christian Brayton. What experience actually is and why I stopped waiting for it. Creating my own access into STEM fields through hands-on field experience without waiting for a company or an organization to provide it. Experience in environmental science, conservation, ecology, wildlife, sustainability, or STEM more broadly, is not meant to be abstract. You learn it by doing the work. Being outside, documenting conditions, analyzing impacts, writing reports, and making judgment calls with incomplete information. Everyone in the field understands this. Yet, entry-level jobs still demand experience that many people are never given a real chance to obtain. Yes, you can apply to nonprofits, internships, and volunteer programs. The limitations are still real. Internships often do not mirror the actual duties listed in future job descriptions because interns are treated as temporary help, not developing professionals. Substantive responsibility and skill growth are limited, and while that is understandable, organizations are still operating businesses. It does not solve the experience gap. Volunteering can be just as restrictive, especially when opportunities in your specific niche are scarce, location-dependent, or incompatible with your schedule. The disconnect shaped many of my early career decisions. Experience seeking is still challenging today. Many opportunities remain unpaid, inaccessible, location-locked, or require long-term commitments that do not align with how people actually live. That has often been my reality. When you are nomadic for work, deployed, traveling, or balancing contract roles, you cannot always promise weekly volunteer hours or enroll in semester-long programs. That does not mean that you are incapable. It means the system was not designed with flexible modern careers in mind. So, I stopped waiting for permission. I went after experience directly. I documented my own field observations. I built repeatable workflows for environmental review, site documentation, research notes, and reports. I treated field work like real work because when it is done correctly, structured, traceable, and defensible, it is real work. Over time, that documentation became resume-ready proof of competency, not hobbies. It earned its place on my resume because it reflected actual skills, not just interest. That gap between what jobs demand and what people are realistically allowed to access is the core problem my platform exists to address. Black professionals in particular face additional barriers to entering and advancing in STEM and conservation unless they are already connected to mentoring pipelines or designated access programs. I am a direct product of community-based organizations like Say Yes Buffalo and Buffalo Prep, both of which provided early educational support and mentorship that made my academic and professional trajectory possible. Those programs matter, but they are limited in scope and geography. Having experienced both community-supported pathways and the broader professional landscape outside of Buffalo, I can clearly see where opportunities narrows. Nepotism plays a role. When leadership and hiring pipelines remain predominantly white and roles circulate through personnel networks, diversity becomes diluted rather than expanded. Environmental work is learning by doing, yet the gatekeeping around approved experience blocks capable people at the entry point. Unpaid internships, informal pipelines, and inside networks disproportionately filter out early career professionals, career switchers, and especially Black and other unrepresented professionals. The result is a workforce that is less diverse, less resilient, and slower to solve real environmental problems. This gap is documented. Federal and independent reporting consistently shows that Black professionals remain significantly underrepresented in conservation and environmental fields, despite comparable interest and qualifications. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has publicly acknowledged that conservation remains a predominantly white field and that structural barriers, not lack of interest, drive exclusions. The Green 2.0 report produced by the Harvard Environmental Law Society found that people of color comprise less than 16% of staff at major environmental organizations, with leadership roles even less diverse. Additional analysis from the Center for American Progress shows that racial and economic inequalities in access to nature, environmental education, and green career pathways compound early, long before hiring decisions are even made. The experience gap predictably blocks Black professionals before capability can even be evaluated. Experience Builders is my response to this reality. This platform provides real, documented, hands-on field experience designed to help people build credible resumes in environmental and conservation careers without waiting for permission from an employer, unpaid internship, or gatekeeper volunteer program. The work is structured, supervised, and credited through a registered LLC. It is not a hobby log or pretend experience. It is applied field work with defined standards, documentation, requirements, and outcomes that can be defended in interviews and reviews. How it works: participants complete guided field activities, documentation exercises, and reporting tasks modeled after real environmental roles. Each activity produces tangible outputs, logs, observations, analysis, and summaries that translate directly to resume, bullet points, and portfolios. The structure provides accountability, while the flexibility allows participants to work within their own schedules, locations, and life constraints. Environmental problems do not wait for perfect resumes. They are solved by people who take initiative, observe when no one asks them to, document accurately, and take responsibility for their analysis. If you've been doing the work informally without credit, this is how you formalize it. And if your lifestyle does not fit traditional programs, this is the way to build experience without compromising your reality. If you've been told you need experience before you can start, that belief will slow you down. I strongly encourage you to visit the Experience Builders page and begin engaging in hands-on experience that has been intentionally pre-crafted to reflect the most common and varied levels of conservation, environmental science, STEM, and field-based roles. The activities are designed to align with what job descriptions actually ask for: fieldwork, documentation, analysis, and reporting, so the experience you gain translates directly to your resume. Browse the available options and start building experience now. More modules are on the way. The system is best suited for early career scientists, recent graduates in biology, environmental science, sustainability, ecology, wildlife conservation, or related fields who are stuck in the experience trap and need documented field competency. Career switchers, people transitioning from adjacent fields who need applied research, observation, and reporting experience to support a credible shift into environmental work. Black and ethnic professionals, those historically excluded from informal pipelines and unpaid opportunities, who need transparent, accountable pathways into conservation and environmental science. Anyone tired of waiting? If you are capable of doing the work, but blocked by arbitrary experience requirements, this space exists for you. And next we have an article by Betty Jean Grant. To the people who thought those 300 bundles of grass, in quotes, were just window dressing, open your eyes and educate your mind. Those were bundles and stalks of sugar cane, which, just like cotton, supported industrialized slavery and made this country rich over the bodies of black and brown enslaved people. Not just in Puerto Rico, but in North and South America, in places such as Haiti, Brazil, Cuba, and of course the state of Louisiana. The extracted sugar was sweet and moist, but sugar cane is also prone to being dried out by the sun soon after it was separated from its hollow bed within the cane. Sugar cane was tough, and in most cases machetes were wielded by both men and women to cut the sugar cane from its stalk. In addition, it has been documented not only with fingers and hands cut off by inexperienced plantation workers while handling machetes, but they also suffered many infections from cuts from the sugar cane itself. Also, to prevent the starving or malnourished enslaved persons from eating any of the sugar cane, they harvested a crude metal face barrier, much like a football helmet, was locked over their mouths and faces. Because of infection, starvation, beatings, and overwork, many of the poor souls on these sugarcane plantations lasted no more than 6 or 7 years before they died or were killed because they had become too sick to be productive. We black and brown persons in the Western Hemisphere, both of the Americas, share more than enslavement and colonization among ourselves. We share the burden of being treated worse than the livestock of those so-called civilized brutes who raided Africa and enslaved the indigenous people there, or traveled in ships to the Americas, where they poisoned with old world diseases or drove into the jungles all of the native population whom they did not slaughter outright. Just like the Kendrick Lamar Super Bowl 59 halftime show and the movie Sinners, there are more than being entertained in these other movies and documentaries that are being developed and produced to a younger generation of artists who are talented, fearless, and proud. They are using their creativity and foresight to reach and teach the current generation of movers and shakers who have become tired of waiting for we older folks to get it right. These young Gen XYZers and the other ones, I don't know the names, are not politically correct. They don't mind calling out corrupt or anti-community leaders and elected officials that are not serving the needs of the people. This new generation of activists are also running for and winning political offices as independent candidates because they are still continuing to be ignored or dismissed by the two major political parties. It seems like Bad Bunny has the love and support of his island territory. I believe he could win any political seat he wants if he goes into politics. I say this because I see and can almost feel the love, pride, and trust the people of Puerto Rico have in him. I am happy for my brown brothers and sisters, but doggone it, when are we black Americans who taught the world how to peacefully protest and advocate for equality going to get back in the saddle and finish the assignment we got during the civil rights era of the 1960s? You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo Criterion on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Defendant pleads guilty for possession of illegal guns. Erie County DA Michael Keene announced that Avelo A. Penna, 35 of Tonawanda, pleaded guilty Thursday morning, February 5th, before Erie County Court Judge James Bagnisi to 2 counts of criminal possession of a weapon in the 2nd degree, 1 count of criminal possession of a weapon in the 3rd degree, 1 count of menacing in the 2nd degree, and 1 count of resisting arrest. Penna entered a guilty plea in all counts in the indictment. On the evening of Tuesday, June 17th, 2025, the complaint reported that the driver of a vehicle waved a gun, which placed him in reasonable fear of harm. The crime occurred in the parking lot outside of a grocery store on the 1200 block of Jefferson Avenue in the city of Buffalo. A short time later, at approximately 6:45 p.m., Buffalo police initiated a traffic stop of a vehicle on East Utica Street and Roche Avenue. Police recovered 2 loaded illegal guns during a search of the vehicle. One of the weapons was equipped with an illegal extended magazine. Penna, the operator of the vehicle, resisted while being placed under arrest. Penna faces a maximum of 15 years in prison when he is sentenced as a second violent felony offender on Wednesday, March 18, 2026 at 9:30 a.m. He remains held without bail. A co-defendant, Ronnie Miggett, 39 of Buffalo, previously pleaded guilty before Judge Bagnisi to 1 count of attempted criminal possession of a weapon in the 2nd degree. He pleaded guilty to the charge in full satisfaction of the indictment in October of 2025. Midget, who continues to be remanded, faces a maximum of 7 years in prison when he is sentenced on Monday, February 9, 2026 at 9:30 a.m. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo Criterion on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And next article, Mayor Sean Ryan, Buffalo Urban Development Corporation, present the third annual Black Business Expo. The Black Business Expo is set for Thursday, February 26th at Oak House, Buffalo, New York. As part of Black History Month festivities in Buffalo, Mayor Sean Ryan and the City of Buffalo Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion will highlight Buffalo's Black-owned businesses community at the third annual Black Business Expo in partnership with the Buffalo Urban Development Corporation, the Exchange at Beverly Gray Center, and That Brown Bag. The event celebrates and promotes Black-owned businesses in Buffalo. The event will also include Black-owned vendors and retailers, food from local restaurants, giveaways from BUDC's Queen City Pop UP initiative, networking opportunities for minority-owned businesses looking to obtain information on certification, and a festive environment with music provided by WUFO. As part of the City of Buffalo's month-long event celebrating Black History Month, we're proud to work with the Buffalo Urban Development Corporation to spotlight the Black-owned businesses that help drive our local economy and define the character of our city, said Mayor Ryan. Black entrepreneurs create jobs, build community wealth, and carry forward culture and creativity that make Buffalo strong. The Black Business Expo is an opportunity to celebrate that impact, connect businesses with real opportunities, and reaffirm our commitment to helping Black-owned businesses grow and succeed here in Buffalo. The Black Business Expo will take place on Thursday, February 26th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Oak House, located at 414 Pearl Street in downtown Buffalo's Entertainment District. Black entrepreneurs create jobs, build community wealth, and carry forward culture and creativity that make Buffalo strong. The Black Business Expo is an opportunity to celebrate that impact, connect businesses with real opportunities. From restaurants, retail, arts, culture, education, and technology, and everything in between, the incredible contributions of Black entrepreneurs continue to advance our city and region. These contributions should not only be acknowledged, but amplified. We invite everyone to join us at the upcoming Black Business Expo for a fun evening celebrating culture, meaningful connections, and the unique offerings of our local Black-owned business community. Black History Month is about more than reflection. It's about investing in the people building our future right now. Black-owned businesses create jobs, circulate dollars locally, and carry the culture of our neighborhoods, yet they're too often under-resourced and overlooked. This partnership between the City of Buffalo, Buffalo Urban Development Corporation, and the Exchange at Beverly Gray signals shared commitment, pairing visibility with real pathways to growth. When we celebrate Black business together, we're not just honoring history, we're strengthening Buffalo's economic future, said Derek Parson, Executive Director of the Exchange at Beverly Gray. For information on how to become a participating vendor at the Expo, contact Brittany Montgomery, City of Buffalo Diversity and Inclusion Coordinator. Her phone number is 716-851-9664. That's Brittany Montgomery. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the February 14th to February 20th issue of the Buffalo Criterion. We read from the Buffalo Criterion every Friday at 7 p.m. Your reader has been Margaret Mack. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service are the New York Times. Following that, at 9 o'clock, we have Buffalo Spree, and at 10 o'clock, we have episode number 12 of Denied Access by Don Bentley with Vince Flynn. Stay with us for these readings and more. Radio Reading mails out a large print program schedule to our listeners every other month. If you have not received a Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service large print program schedule in the mail, please call us at 716-821-5555. We will make sure that you receive one every other month. A Braille version of the schedule is also available upon request. Our number again is 716-821-5555.
Hello, this is Mark Greyer. For the next hour, I'll be reading from the February 19th issue of the New York Times on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Okay, first article for today. U.S. military moves into place for possible strikes on Iran. President Trump has given no indication that he has made a decision about how to proceed as diplomatic talks continue. The rapid buildup of U.S. forces in the Middle East has progressed to the point that President. Hello, this is Mark Greyer. For the next hour, I'll be reading